Hey all, welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links video, and boy am I happy. I have internet back today, and thus I have been working on a Marik farm deck, one that I'm really proud of. I've seen actually Mascarin put out a video very similar to the deck that I was using, so I took some inspiration from him for numbers of what would kind of work for how many field spells versus how many healing cards and everything like that, so thanks, good shout out to him. Really appreciate his videos all the time. But once again, Game A was kind of my source initially for what I need to kind of look for and what I need to kind of prepare with. So let's not waste any time, let's get right into the deck. Now I did upload a video earlier today that actually only had posted a couple hours ago at the time of me recording this. And that's because I had to upload that at my local coffee shop. But now I'm back at home with internet, thankfully, and I'm able to record this. So I won't go over the whole Marik details and everything. That's I kind of went over that in the previous video, but right now we can just work on the farm and we can talk about how to use this deck. Now this is the absolute best deck I can make personally. Obviously, if I had double union attack, this deck would be even better, but I don't, so I use one spell reclamation. But let's dive into the core concept of this deck. So the core concept is using Labyrinth Builder to bring out a Labyrinth Wall first turn, and then as quickly as you can, bringing out your field spell. Now, the field spell I have specifically chosen for this deck, for a very specific reason, is Sorcerer's Spell Wall. Now, Sorcerer's Spell Wall gives you 300 attack during your turn, and 300 defense on your opponent's turn, for all your monsters. Now, another key point, you only ever want to have one monster out on the field until the final turn, because Lava Golem is a real threat. So the reason why I chose Sorcerer's Spell Wall is because at some point, usually as late as you can, so you can avoid sending too many cards to the graveyard, I tribute summon my Labyrinth Wall for another Labyrinth Wall. Now, his Mass Beast is 3300 attack, and Labyrinth Wall with this Spell Wall is also 3300 defense. So when he does attack into it, because it will be face down, he won't take any battle damage, and you still get the tribute summon bonus. Now the reason I included that in the deck is because I don't have enough prismatic and glossy cards to get over 1000 with just this base 7300 farm. Now there is a chance that you can get low life, and at that point then all I would need to do is get 200 points worth of glossy and prismatic, so that's a fairly easy thing. So that's why I have this in here, because I want to get 8000 each and every time. Now if he doesn't bring out his Mass Beast, I don't tribute summon, so that's something that you need to make sure of as well. If he does not bring out his Mass Beast, do not tribute summon for your Labyrinth Wall, because then he will attack into it with one of his lower monsters, and that will deal him battle damage, and that will ruin your effect damage only engine, which is the Vassal engine. So we use Vassal with this with Union Attack, and you need to use Union Attack twice, so that's why we have Spell Reclamation. Spell Reclamation, if you only have one Union Attack, it allows you to discard one card from your hand, chain this to the activation of a spell card, and then when that spell card goes to the graveyard, you actually get it back to your hand. So when it's in your hand, you can reuse it, so it's essentially using Union Attack twice, so it's like you have two Union Attacks. Now I talked about the importance of having Sorcerer's Spell Wall on the field, because his Mass Beast is 3300 attack. So the numbers that I'm playing with right now, which I think are most effective, is 2 Planet Pathfinders. So Planet Pathfinder allows you to tribute it in order to add one field spell from your deck to your hand. Now this is very important. Only summon this card if you're 100% sure you have a field spell in your deck still, because if this card is left out on the field, it's very likely you will lose the duel. So that's how I get my Sorcerer's Spell Wall to my hand as quickly as possible. Normally I like to see this on the field, the Sorcerer's Spell Wall, within the first 3 turns, because he is very likely to easily special summon out his Mass Beast quite quickly in the duel. So if you want more security, I would add in a 3rd field spell and a 3rd Pathfinder. But once you have that field spell out, all those cards become dead. So that's why I only run 2 of each, and so does Mascarin, and I believe that that's kind of the most efficient number as of right now. Next up, some other key components. So Summoner of Illusions. This is how we bring out our Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. So Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon is our fusion card. It does not count as a fusion summon, but it does count as a special summon, and it does count as a powerful monster with 4500 attack that Union Attack will utilize. So Summoner Illusions allows you to flip summon it to tribute one other monster, and if you do, special summon that fusion monster. So that's how we get out Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Also, I'm very, very lucky that my Summoner of Illusions is actually a prismatic, so that's some extra duel points for me there. But you might be asking, how are we going to summon 2 cards on our last turn? Well, we don't. We summon Summoner of Illusions the second last turn. So you set it the second last turn and you use Dimension Hole. So Dimension Hole will select it and remove it from play for the remainder of the next turn and bring it back on your next standby phase. So that's very key, so your opponent cannot hit it. Also, I have a Dimension Hole that is glossy, so that's a bonus as well. Now we're going to be taking a lot of damage because of the Shadow Game ability that he possesses. So I would recommend having Rain of Mercies, but since I only have one, I supplement one extra Rain of Mercy with a Diane Kiddo the Cure Master. So let's talk about Rain of Mercy. So Rain of Mercy heals both players by 1,000 points, which on its own should be enough to save you from most farms, but if case you get unlucky, you want to have 2 of these, and you want to be able to draw into them soon enough, but as long as you draw into one at about the midpoint or a little bit later in the game, you should be absolutely fine. So Rain of Mercy is the better choice out of every other card because this will also make sure Marik gains 1,000 life points so that he stays higher than you, so you get the comeback victory. In most farms using this deck, you should have the comeback victory without healing Marik, just because you are the one putting a lot of cards in your graveyard a lot quicker. But just in case, I do have one Rain of Mercy, and then the second Diane Kiddo, the Cure Master. Diane Kiddo heals you by 1,000 and does not heal your opponent, which is why I think Rain of Mercy is a little bit better in this sense. But Diane Kiddo is a very good alternative as well. Now, instead of using Storm, which most farms are using, I use Anti-Magic Arrows. So this is a really awesome card because it'll stop Marik from using his Nightmare Wheels during the battle phase when you go to attack, because that's the only point he sees a card as a threat. And Anti-Magic Arrows makes it so cards cannot be activated in response to this, and this card can be in your hand, and when you activate the battle phase, because it's a quick play, you can play it during your turn right from your hand. This shuts down your opponent completely, and thus for me is the perfect card to stop him from using all his back row and me not having to storm, because I have to have my spell Reclamation face down. So I don't have to play with timing and everything properly, because I might not have a card face down at that time. It's just one less thing I have to worry about, and most people should have the Anti-Magic Arrows because it was a for sure reward from the Arcana event if you just dueled him 15 times. In addition, Sorcerer's Spell Wall only works in the Union attack version, and that is because Vassal is 700 attack. So Vassal, the main monster you're going to use to attack, that also treats itself as effect damage instead of battle damage, is only 700, so the 300 bonus you get from your Sorcerer's Spell Wall will still allow you to use Secret Pass to the treasures, where Piranha Army has 800 attack, so you will have to use a different field spell. So like I was saying, Secret Pass to the treasures allows you select one monster with 1,000 or less attack, and it can attack directly this turn, and that is very key because you will for sure have monsters on the field. Another very, very important card is Good Goblin Housekeeping, and this is so important because it allows you to place cards at the bottom of your deck, which means I don't have to use Crystal Seer anymore, and this potential draws are insane. So Good Goblin Housekeeping, so you draw a number of cards equal to the Good Goblin Housekeeping cards in your graveyard, plus 1, and then select one card from your hand and return it to the bottom of the deck. So I can place cards at the bottom of my deck that I do not need, and make sure that my Spell Reclamation, and my Dimension Hole, and my Summoner of Illusions are not the final 2 cards of my deck. That's very key. And just because I have 1 extra space, and because I have 2 Shards of Greed, there's 3 leftover spaces for draw cards, and I chose just to add in those 2 Shards of Greeds and 1 Jar of Greed. You can play with the numbers of those. If you don't have 2 Shards of Greeds, if you only have 1, you can add another Jar of Greed, or if you have no Shards of Greed, you can add in 3 Jar of Greeds. Now that is my personal level 40 farm deck that I will be using throughout the remainder of this event. I might tweak it a little bit as new strategies come up, but for now I have not lost any of my duels yet, and I have already unlocked Marik, and I'm already at 450,000. I've used this deck 3 times to perfect it and make sure it works efficiently. There are a lot of other similar decks that I'm finding out there that use Labyrinth Builder and this style of play, so I think it's a fairly consistent and viable deck to use. But I do have some alternatives because I know this is a very expensive deck, and some people may not have all these specific cards, so I have some alternatives for you guys. Now this still uses the Labyrinth Builder ability, but some card changes, so as long as you have Labyrinth Builder, we can work on a deck that will work for you. So instead of using Good Goblin Housekeeping, you can sub that out for Crystal Seer. Crystal Seer allows you to look at the top 2 cards of your deck and add 1 to your hand and put 1 at the bottom of your deck. So that's a very, very good alternative, and I'd recommend that highly over Good Goblin, but you need one of those 2. So instead of using the Vassal with Union engine, you can change that out for the Piranha Army with Gift engine. So Gift of the Martyr will tribute 1 monster and add the attack points of that monster's original attack to a selected monster. So your target Piranha Army has 800 attack. It'll then become 5300 if you tribute your Blue Eyes Ultimate, or maybe if you have a Master of Oz, it'll give it exactly 5000. Piranha inflicts double damage when it attacks directly. Also, instead of using Sorcerer's Spellwell, you can use Acidic Downpour, a field spell that decreases the attack of rock monsters by 500 and increases their defense by 400. This will allow your Labyrinth Wall to gain 400 defense, putting it 3400, but if you're trying to use that with a Union attack version, I would not tribute someone for the additional Labyrinth Wall. You will cause Marik to attack your monster and thus dealing him battle damage, and your effect only engine will fail. But I also know a lot of you guys don't have the Labyrinth Builder ability as well. So here's 2 Unhappy Girl decks that I found. One is from Game A, and one is from our very own Guns Blazing. I personally will never be using an Unhappy Girl if I can use a Labyrinth Wall deck that is consistent and doesn't require Dimension Gate, just because it's way more consistent. With the Unhappy Girl, you have to draw into the Unhappy Girl quickly in order for the farm to be successful. So let's get into the replay, and I can show you guys how a successful farm should look with this. And I just want to mention some key points. Make sure you don't discard too many cards to the graveyard right away. Marik's Shadow Play will deal you damage times 100 for each card in your graveyard. So if you can avoid tribute summoning, or if you can avoid searching for other cards for just a little bit, it might be ideal. As long as you have enough healing cards though, you should be just fine. And if you're really, really gutsy, you can play with the low life bonus. I do get that sometimes. If your life points are below 1000, you get an extra 500, and if your life points are exactly 100, you'll get 1000. So that's a gamble, but it can be done. As long as you are smart and calculate your totals, it's very likely that you can achieve that as well. The reason I have my deck the way it is so I can make sure I have 8000 for each duel and get the maximum I can out of each duel, as we do have double gold and double keys still available, and the gold drops are very, very good right now. So I'll show you that clip, and I'll catch you at the end of the video. So there you guys have it, a very successful farm. I'm insanely happy with this. I'm really happy that Marik is an easy enough duelist to farm, at least for me personally, and there's still the double K keys and gold. I can't believe I was lucky enough to get 2 super rares again. Apparently my luck is when I show it on camera. So I recommend farming Marik as much as you can. This is an awesome event. Maybe the drops aren't the greatest for cards, but there's still a lot to be earned here. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, make sure to leave them down below and I can help resolve them as quickly as I can to the best of my ability. I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one. As always, peace.